been almost 2 months since Malaysia Air Flight 370 disappeared. The search continues, but so far, not much has turned up.
Tonight, a Western New Yorker says he can help. News 4's Ed Dranch has this unusual story.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And great news at last after 8 weeks of waiting. Missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 has been found. Or should we say, WIVB's News 4 in Buffalo, New York, has talked to a man who claims to have a picture of the plane sitting on the seabed in the Gulf of Thailand.
Michael Hobel says he's been using a crowdsourcing website looking at satellite images available to the public, trying to find missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Now, I want to show you the picture. He says he found this image, and he says it was taken days after the crash and clearly shows the plane, and he says it's intact.
Even the folks at WIVB admitted this was an unusual story, which is code for, hey guys, you have to be kidding. But that didn't stop the amateur pilot making headlines all around the world, led as so often by the Mail Online, which is now one of Australia's top 10 news sites.
Is this MH370?
Other British websites like the UK Mirror also jumped on the story, and it was soon being picked up by homegrown and Antipodean sites like news.com.au, the West Australian, Kiss FM, and even The Age and Sydney Morning Herald. So, what was the evidence for this amazing breakthrough? Well, practically zip. Even though the amateur sleuth had no doubts he'd hit on what the rest of the world had failed to find.
Just in front of the wing is your first breach here. Another thing here is, I'm not sure if you can see the lighter skin here where the wing attaches to the fuselage. You see that lighter skin? Now look at the image of the 777-200 series. See the elevated portion here?
Yes, that was his evidence. Well, we don't want to spoil the scoop, but let's just say that even Buffalo's local news program was far from convinced.
Naysayers would say, this the image looks like a shark, it could be anything.
That's a 210-foot shark.
By the time the Buffalo TV report appeared, the US pilot's claims had already failed to spark interest with American authorities, including the FBI and US National Transport Safety Board. But the media are always happy to give credence to such half-baked nonsense. And no sooner did this missing plane story fade off the screen than another one popped up, with Australia playing the starring role.
An Adelaide-based exploration company believes it may have located the wreckage of Malaysia Flight 370, 5,000 kilometres away from where authorities have been looking.
The company GeoResonance says its research has identified elements on the ocean floor consistent with material from a plane, but so far it's had no response from authorities.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Always a worry when the authorities are showing no interest. And always a worry when top-secret Soviet military technology is involved.
The technology that we use was originally designed to find nuclear warheads, submarines. Our team in Ukraine decided that we should try and help.
But Channel 7's Adelaide News was not at all put off by talk of teams in Ukraine and high-tech marvels. In fact, they lapped it up.
Scientists focused their efforts north of the flight's last known location, using over 20 technologies to analyse data, including a nuclear reactor. They couldn't believe what they found in the Bay of Bengal.
Our team was very excited when we found what we believed to be the wreckage of a commercial airliner.
We identified chemical elements and materials that make up a Boeing 777.
Adelaide, Buffalo, the Bay of Bengal, who cares where the breakthroughs are coming from? With the search in the southern Indian Ocean drawing a blank, the entire world wanted this story, even though the rest of the Seven network barely touched it. And this time it was the UK Mirror leading the charge.
Missing flight MH370 found. Exploration company claims it may have located crashed passenger jet.
As usual, the Mail Online was soon onto it too. But this story had the big US TV networks like CBS, NBC and CNN also grabbing at the news. And before long, it was spinning back into Australia with international approval, and onto online sites like news.com.au, The Age and Sydney Morning Herald, and even the Australian Financial Review, although some did question the claims. It was also getting a run on radio in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth and Adelaide, with 5AA's Will Goodings particularly impressed.
Well,
The search for missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 has hit Adelaide. Remarkable, this story.
Even more remarkable was the fact that so few people were asking the basic questions, such as what is nuclear magnetic resonance technology and how does it work? The first to do that was America's CNN and its aviation analyst Miles O'Brien.
What have you learned about this company, Georesonance, and its claims about the missing plane?
Well, Christy, I know of no bona fide experts in the world of satellite imagery who say it is possible to do what they did.
The previous day on CNN, the man who co-led the search for AF447, the Air France jet that disappeared into the Atlantic in 2009, was equally dubious about Georesonance's discovery.
If they did, it's groundbreaking in terms of ocean exploration and understanding, and it's a game changer. So, you know, it's quite the statement to make, and it's going to be found out one way or another.
Contributors to the online skeptics site metabunk.org were far ruder than that, with page upon page of analysis and derisory comments about the Adelaide searcher's boasts. Now, we should say that Georesonance dismisses all these critics by saying they are not privy to the technology. And director David Pope tells MediaWatch,
"One really needs to be a nuclear physicist with an understanding of quantum physics to grasp the realities of what we are capable of."
Well, that's certainly not us. So we can't judge who is right. But when you delve a little deeper into Georesonance, it gets even harder to take its claims seriously. For a start, the company is not in the phone book. It's also existed for little more than a year, and its share capital is just $48. What's more, some of the claims on its website, set up just days before the Channel 7 report, do not check out. It claims, for example, that its NMR technology located the sunken ship Armenia on the floor of the Black Sea in 2005. But the Armenia, which was sunk by the Germans in 1941, killing thousands of passengers, is in fact still missing. So what checks did Channel 7's Adelaide News make into this company and its claims? They tell MediaWatch they contacted unnamed experts, but the best they could offer viewers was this man.
Carl Dortch has used the company's technology for oil and gas exploration. He believes they could be onto something.
I just thought they had a moral duty.
And that was the sum of it. What Channel 7 didn't say was that Dortch and his company, Tell Us Resources, operate from the same Adelaide offices as Georesonance, and that he is one of only 2 clients the company has. But setting all this aside, it's highly unlikely that MH370 would be at the bottom of the Bay of Bengal, when all the search teams are convinced the plane flew in the opposite direction. So it was no great surprise that the authorities gave 7's new lead the big thumbs down. And the story then came full circle.
The safety regulator assisting with the search for missing flight MH370 has revealed why it's dismissed an Adelaide company's theory about its whereabouts. Andrea Nicholas joins us now. Andrea, what's the latest?
Jane, yesterday the Australian Transport Safety Bureau said Georesonance's claims were being examined by the international search team. But today it told 7 News it stands by its belief the company's report is junk science.
The ATSB told MediaWatch it reached this verdict well before Channel 7's report went to air, and that it sought advice from other reputable scientists and they decided there wasn't any credibility to the study. Perhaps if Channel 7 had contacted them in the first place, the story would never have flown. But Georesonance complains that the ATSB has never contacted them either.
At no stage have the ATSB contacted us, nor any of their scientific consultants that they claim to have spoken with. Georesonance would welcome a request from the ATSB for a technical presentation. Our methodology cannot be analysed by looking at our website. It's a shame some people are not thorough in their investigations. Then, because they cannot comprehend something, especially something scientific, then it cannot be possible. For a government department to make such a statement, it is bordering on complete ignorance and incompetence.
Meanwhile, we understand that ships from the Bangladeshi Navy have searched the Bay of Bengal and found nothing. And now, from the search for the missing plane to savings in the budget. And perhaps there's a link, because 2GB's Alan Jones had Federal Treasurer Joe Hockey in the studio on Friday, and this was his first question.
I guess the nation wants to know, who is paying for this Malaysian flight rescue operation?
Well, we are picking up the tab.
Does it go on and on and on? Do we just keep searching? Is there a time at which we say, look, You know, there's a new word in the vocabulary, this word of closure. We want to have closure to everything. I mean, this can't go on for months and months and years and years.
Well, I think we have to find the plan.
And good luck to that. But Joe Hogg is also looking for budget savings, which is why the Prime Minister has floated a new deficit levy that would arguably break his most solemn pre-election promise. No surprises and no new taxes. Alan Jones was silent on whether this would be a broken promise, despite his famous attacks on Julia Gillard for breaking her word that Australia would not have a carbon tax.
Do you understand, Julia, that you are the issue today because there are people now saying your name is not Julia, but Julia, and they are saying that we've got a liar running the country.
But Alan Jones's fellow 2GB broadcaster Andrew Bolt did not flinch from the comparison in his syndicated News Corp column.
Tony's Gillard moment. Tony Abbott wants to break a promise after all, but his deficit tax would break the wrong one and risk killing his government. Labor knows this is its big chance to destroy Abbott by doing to him what he did to Julia No Carbon Tax Gillard.
The Australian's Chris Kenny took the same line, saying that Tony Abbott's main promise was to keep his promises. And the Daily Telegraph's Miranda Devine also pulled no punches.
Whatever you call it, it's a tax. The Prime Minister, who promised no new taxes and whose campaign was based on the deceit of Julia Gillard's carbon tax, has scored the most inexplicable own goal on the eve of the May 13 budget, which will define this term in office.
But News Corp's Terry McCrann was having none of this criticism. After breaking the news of a deficit levy in the Herald Sun last Tuesday, he immediately began singing its praises.
Joe Hockey's coming sharing the pain deficit levy is very clever, entirely reasonable, and indeed appropriate politics.
Next day, he was at it again, selling the tax and savaging its critics.
The reaction to our disclosure of Joe Hockey's share the pain deficit levy was entirely predictable, but still extremely disappointing and even pathetic.
And in the Weekend Australian, he came back even harder.
Abbott didn't break any promises.
And helping him defend this potential new tax against attack was Alan Jones, who prefaced their chat last week with a blast against those who were using the levy to accuse the Prime Minister of breaking his pledge.
The politics of it today are lethal because critics, as we know from day one, since he got the leadership, were waiting with an axe, a gun, a crowbar and a mallet for any chance to get Abbott. This bloke has got some class, that's why they feel threatened by him. And this most probably plays politically into the hands of the Abbott haters. Terry McCrann always injects a dose of reality. Terry, good morning.
But perhaps the dose of reality we all needed came from the former Howard Minister Peter Reith, who on the eve of the budget reminded us it was never wise to trust a politician.
Let's be realistic about politics. This is not the first government who, in opposition, made a whole lot of promises that in the end were not delivered. And that's not news. It's certainly not news to the Australian public, who are very sceptical about politicians with very good reason.
We'll see soon whether that deficit tax goes ahead. And watch this space to see how the row about broken promises unfolds. And you can read more about these stories on our website, where you can also get a transcript and download the programme. And you can catch up with us on iView and contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. But until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.